Hi, welcome to Feminist Fridays. Today we're going to be talking about second wave feminism, when it happened, who was involved, what it accomplished, and why it still matters. Second wave feminism is a movement that started in the early 1960s and continued into the 1980s. Second wave feminists sought to address not just the legal inequalities, but what was considered the de facto inequalities between genders. The major issues that second wave feminists are normally remembered for are reproductive rights, fighting against workplace inequality, and offering protection to those who face domestic abuse. Notable second wave feminists include Simone de Beauvoir, who was the author of The Second Sex, which examined how women were eldered in a patriarchal society. Esther Peterson, who worked on the Presidential Commission on the Status of Women and was the director of the United States Women's Bureau. And Eleanor Roosevelt, who was Eleanor Roosevelt. Now, you might be noticing a trend. If you watched my video on first wave feminism, you may remember most of the people involved in first wave feminism were middle-class white women. Not exclusively, but mostly. One common critique of second wave feminism is that the narrative of second wave feminism has been whitewashed. It has failed to acknowledge the contributions from women of color, the working class women, and LGBT women. For example, one thing that second wave feminism is commonly associated with is the ability to work outside the home after marriage. Working class women and women of color, particularly black women, were already doing that. And not because they didn't want to be homemakers, because of generational poverty. When we talk about second wave feminism, we have to be including the contributions of women like Florence Kennedy, a lawyer and civil rights activist whose protest summary was summed up by "make white people uncomfortable," and who co-authored one of the very first books about abortion. Now, women already had the vote, so you might be asking, what did second wave feminists actually accomplish? The answer is a lot. They accomplished a lot. Like sex education. After the FDA approved birth control in 1960, feminists began holding panels and workshops to teach about contraception, safe abortion, and STDs. Or for another issue on bodily autonomy, how about ending sterilization that happened without consent? In the 1940s, the US government was very interested in population control of racial minorities. It's exactly as disgusting as it sounds. Women were being sterilized without their knowledge or consent, which was reprehensible. And in the 1970s, the Committee to End Sterilization Abuse was founded. If you have a job, you might be familiar with Title VII. Activists lobbied for the Title VII amendment to be added to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prevented discrimination based on sex in the workplace, and made it possible to report sexual harassment and abuse that happened within the workplace, which should be none, but it occurred and is still a really frequent occurrence. If you know anybody that's ever gone to a public school in America, you might also be familiar with Title IX, which was passed in the US in 1972 and made it illegal to discriminate on the basis of sex in schools receiving federal funding. First wave feminism laid the groundwork that ensured that women had the right to vote and the right to property. Second wave feminism built upon that to pass legislation to prevent and punish discrimination on the basis of sex. Second wave feminism built upon that to pass legislation that prevented discrimination, while also making strides in reproductive rights. We have the opportunity to learn from the past and to learn from the activists that came before us, some of whom are still around and still being activists. But we can learn from their successes and failures, and I hope that they have already learned from some of them. Second wave feminists looked at the institutions around them and noticed that the systems in place benefited one specific group. And then they introduced legislation and educated their peers on the inequality perpetuated by these institutions in an attempt to dismantle them. Institutional inequality may not be as overt as it once was, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. And we should still be questioning the systems and laws around us to lessen the inequality in our society through education and reform. Second wave feminism was a movement that took place at the same time as the civil rights movement and the gay liberation movement. This isn't just a historical fact, but a call to build communities with the other activists around us. It is impossible to put 100% of yourself into every issue, but you can connect with other people who are working on similar issues. And we can all show up in support of each other and the work that we're doing. And finally, we can learn that there isn't just one easy solution. If there was an easy solution to any of the problems in our society, we wouldn't have needed a second wave of feminism, and we certainly wouldn't have needed a third one. If there was an easy solution, I have to believe that we would have figured it out already. For example, take reproductive rights. One group was fighting for accessible birth control, while another was fighting against forced sterilization. Both of these issues are about bodily autonomy and reproductive rights, but they have different solutions because they're very different problems. There wasn't an easy solution that was going to work for both issues, even though they are intensely related. The problems we will encounter in our world are many, and they are complex and interconnected. So our solutions have to be too. Thank you for joining me for this Feminist Friday and learning about second wave feminism with me. If you want to see more from me, you can subscribe, watch another video of mine, or support me on Patreon. And hey, I love you.